What's going on, everybody? Blade55555 here, and today I am presenting to you my next guide in the Guide to Improve series that I've been doing. For those who aren't aware, I do have my first video that I released a few weeks ago at the 1000 ELO, which is probably equivalent to bronze, I believe, with the ranked environment now. I apologize for not doing this lately. I've been busy the past few weeks, but I should be able to keep a consistent schedule now and get this series going on. So, we're just going to start this off here and note that this is going to be 1100 ELO, which is equivalent to silver in ranked mode. My goal is again to kind of go through all those stages to improve. And so in the previous videos, I went over how a main focus as a new player should be to learn a build order, stick to one civilization, and keep doing that until you kind of get that down. Now this portion of the guide is going to go over a little bit more, I don't know if advanced is the right way to say it, but reacting to your opponents by scouting and of course how to react. Because no matter what level of play you are, whether you're a pro, you're a noob, you're intermediate, doesn't matter. You can practice a build order repeatedly as many times as you want, but sometimes your opponent is going to do something that you have to change and adapt to. For example, let's say this French player decided he was going to tower rush right now. You know, not a common strategy, right, for French, but if you saw it, it's going to throw your build order out for a loop, and you've got to be able to adapt to those situations. Both of these players are equivalent to silver. I believe Mr. Krabs is a silver player, whereas Jesse Punkman hasn't played ranked mode, but looking at the match history and stuff, that's kind of what I found out. It's an Abbasid versus French. We will be, again, going forward and going over a couple replays in this video along with improving. So one thing you'll notice in this video is the build order is pretty clean in the beginning, very straightforward. Jesse here went for 2 scouts, started on the berries, 3 on gold. He's going to make his House of Wisdom here on this villager. Please don't prove me wrong, Jesse. There we go. That's what I like to see. This is kind of, I think this is a build order I posted on YouTube. Not sure if Jesse's used it or not, just saying it's kind of a popular build order, this one right here. Build the House of Wisdom here. They do have a few too many villagers queued, but I'm sure they cancel that so they can advance at 242, which is a good time when doing a double scout opening as Abbasid. And then what they're going to do here is they're going to get a fast wheelbarrow, and then from there it depends where they want to go. They can go for a double TC, which I actually don't like doing with this opening. If you go 4 gold, berries, fast wheelbarrow, quick 2 TC's tough because of a potential night harass. But maybe they're going to be aggressive here. I have watched the game, so I do kind of know what they're going to do here. And that's going to be a good example of adapting to your opponent. So we're just going to skip forward a little bit. The build order is very straightforward for what they're doing. They're now going to go add in hunts, which I think is a smart thing. Hunts are very, very good right now. For those who are unaware, hunts give you 25 food per villager, or to better explain that, a villager on hunts gathers 25 instead of 10 like on sheep. So it really pays off really quickly. You know, these 4 villagers, every trip they make, that's 100 food instead of 40 food. That's 2 villagers. We're going to see here he has fresh food stuff. So the beginning build order was clean, straightforward, knew what they were doing. And as you can see, they got the wheelbarrow. Now we're going to kind of go into the adaptive phase. So Jesse here has a plan where he wants to go quick camel archers to harass. At this point, we can see they have scouted stone. They have not scouted the second TC being built yet, but they do know about the stone. They're doing a good job because this is, again, very important, is always seeing what your opponent's up to. And you can click on the stone, and now they see the second TC. Now, this is where a strategy can take a turn, right? So I'm going to pause the game here to kind of explain this. Only until recently, more and more French players are starting to do this 2 TC build. Whether that remains or not in the future, who knows? But as of this video, this is kind of a new thing that's been kind of hitting, even at high-ranked ladder. The normal plan with this build would be to get horse archer or camel archers to deal with the night harass and be defensive. or to defend against a French harass, because usually French in this matchup are very aggressive against Abbasid. So it kind of makes sense to delay your second TC if you're not comfortable going a quick 2 TC and then defending. But anyway, just kind of going into that real quick. So you scout, our opponent, or Jesse scouted the second TC. And this is a great example where you want to start adapting. If I scouted this as Abbasid and I'd already committed to this strategy, I would be committing to adding towers. We see that our French opponent has a tower here, but this doesn't protect them, right? What Jesse could do here, grab these 3 camel archers, go here, tower here, deny this wood line, game over. French has no wood. You could also, I mean, that would be my focus, is to deny the wood. Denying wood is so important, because then you can't build farms, you can't build military production buildings, so on. But even they can deny the gold. You just have to kind of wrap around here, build a tower here. This tower is not going to protect this to stop this tower. You deny gold. You deny gold, you obviously deny your opponent ever advancing to Castle Age or making knights. So these are kind of adaptive strategies you can do. That is not what happens this game, as a slight spoiler, but this game is not meant to be a super in-depth necessarily about that, but kind of going over adapting in general and how a lot of players at this level do not adapt very well. Even at high level play, you'll see players, like myself, fail to adapt in situations where you should make better moves when you scout certain things. And I'd say at this point, at this level, adapting to what your opponent is doing is going to help you jump up to that next level. For example, if you scout archers, you want to add knights, or you scout 2 TC and you're not going 2 TC yourself, you want to pressure your opponent. Or you can fast castle, but you want to do something other than normal. You don't want to just make a couple camel archers, try to harass, and that's all you do, because that's not enough against 2 TC, especially 2 TC French, which gets villagers in 17 seconds instead of 20 seconds. But so as we can see here, our French opponent is building towers to be defensive, which is again very common with this build. And this is good, harassing the wood line. If you can deny wood, like you stop archer production, right? So imagine if Jesse had grabbed these 4 camels, rushed here, placed a tower here, or even here, denied these wood lines. These archers can never be produced, and camel archers are actually pretty decent versus knights. I think they're even faster they're the same speed as knights now, so they're not like awful against them. But either way, you have the tower here, you deny the wood lines. That's what Jesse should have done in this game, or at least tried to do when they saw this opening. At this point, it's too late. Not going to be able to do that anymore, because this tower is going to prevent any towers from being placed here, obviously. So instead, what Jesse ends up doing is they're going to go Castle Age. Not a bad decision. Depending on what they plan on doing on that transition. What I would probably have done, looking at their resources, is I might have even I would have switched into men-at-arms a little sooner. Like, these barracks are super late. Gone into men-at-arms, maybe try to take out this tower, and then try to deny the wood lines again. Denying wood is going to be the important part in this game because of how forward they are. But anyway, I've gone over that enough. So, another thing at this level of play that you're still going to see that I gave even in the last video is your mechanics. You still want to focus on that, spending your resources, and being able to get the appropriate production buildings down at the right time. We're going to see that Jesse here, he put 2 upgrades, queued 2 men-at-arms, and he's been Castle Age for probably a minute or so at this point. And he doesn't have a single Castle Age unit. He's got veteran camel archers, but I don't actually think that's the best unit to make right now, just because they are very food heavy and they don't trade that effectively, especially versus archers and knights now with their recent nerf. So we've been at Castle Age for almost 2 minutes, and they're just now getting their first men-at-arms out. With this long, if they had these 3 barracks out sooner, they could have had, let's see, 3 per barracks, 9 men-at-arms out right now. Could have pressured this, taken this tower down, and then, again, denied the wood line, or they could have tried pressuring here if they wanted to, but they could have done something. Instead, due to their delay with the barracks, and adapting kind of, I would say, not adapting appropriately. These are very late. By the time they start getting their Castle Age production out, the French player is going to be Castle Age as well. And then this is going to be a, I can't imagine it's not a worthwhile trade, but this fight kind of happens. Some French knight harass, and this is kind of another thing. They could have walled here to defend against knights. Right now, these knights could be killing a lot of villagers. This could be 7 dead villagers right here, a few here. And then I don't agree with this siege workshop, unless they want to make trebs, but I don't think trebs are a necessity right now, especially since I guess they don't know. I don't think they've scouted that French is going castle yet. And this is hard to say because I didn't pay attention to that part. But that's kind of the thing right now. So if you're going to go Castle Age, in this instance, if you're one TC, sorry, and you see your opponent's going 2 TC and you decide to go Castle Age, you need to go with a plan. You need to know what you're going to do. I don't think Jesse necessarily had the best plan in terms of, I don't think he knew what he wanted to do until he was already Castle Age. And that kind of, it delays a lot of things. And 2 minutes is a long time. That 2-minute tech advantage is gone. 3 minutes, really, almost 4 minutes by the time French gets to Castle Age. That you could have done a lot of things. Like, for example, I actually think Knights would have been a great answer here instead of going Men-at-Arms, because you know that they have 2 archery ranges. Your Knights will be stronger than the French Knights because you have Castle Age Knights and they have Feudal Age Knights. And then with upgrades, you know, with this, arrows are going to do very little damage, as we can see here. I mean, even with +1, these Men-at-Arms tank, but imagine if they were Knights. Knights would take these out, take these out. You could destroy these villagers, you know, force them into the TC. Actually, like, just to give you perspective, let's pretend that they made 8 Knights here and attacked. They would wipe this army pretty easily. The arrow fire from the town centers and the towers wouldn't do very much, especially with +2. You could deny this wood line forever. You could take, you know, let's look how many villagers the French has just in this area. They have 50 villagers, so even if they garrison them all in here, they're still going to have over 20 idle villagers that you can kill. That they don't really have a response to because they just went to castle. They don't have any backup infrastructure, and so this is kind of another thing that I just like to hammer this point in because it really holds you from getting better as a player or improving, is spending the resources. The French player here, for example, should have had 3 or 4 stables, maybe not 3, but 2 or 3 stables, a couple more archery ranges, and they should be able to spam out a bunch of knights, arbaletaire, or, you know, the crossbowman equivalent for those unaware. Just a variety of things they could have done here instead of going castle, only having 2 archery ranges, 1 stable, and but they have 1,200 wood, 1,000 stone, 1,000 gold. Again, so this is still going to be a thing that you want to make sure you focus on, is this macro portion of your build, or of your gameplay in general. And then so we're just going to keep going forward. Another smart idea that may have actually worked out for Jesse if they had gone for that fast castle was trying to do a fast keep drop. Maybe trying to drop a keep here or even here to deny the future wood line, which isn't a bad idea with knights. And then going from there. So again, so Jesse scouted the 2 TC, and I don't think they ever adapted appropriately. And again, this isn't meant to flame the player or anything. This is just to kind of emphasize what they should be working on when you scout something. Which is, again, Age of Empires is a very, very informational game. The more information you have, the better you can respond. And you really want to have that information. Doing things blind or going in without a plan is going to backfire a lot because you float resources because you're not sure what you want to do. And I think Jesse at this point is kind of at that point because again they haven't dropped a second TC, they haven't dropped a keep, they gathered all this stone but they didn't really use it on anything. So, and that's a lot of resources. 1,000 stone, that's a bunch of resources that could have been used. Those villagers could have been on wood, getting extra wood or gold or food or, you know, something. So you definitely always want to go on a plan. when doing anything, especially in Age of Empires, because there's just so much to adapt to. 2 TC play is going to be very different than if French was 1 TC play. This game would be a very different game if French was going 1 TC, right? And then at this point, we're going to see that they're just kind of floating some resources. Jesse has a lot of food and gold, but I don't think they're just sure what to do. They're not really throwing down any production buildings. Idle. Their military production buildings are idle. They actually have an idle TC, which again, I said this in the last video, always have villagers making. Never let this thing go idle if you can help it. It's a difference between being getting up to that next level and not. Which again, there's kind of the same things I went over last video. Because you're going to see they're only at 48 villagers, but there hasn't been that much harassed by these knights. And again, just only one villager at a time. No reason to do that unless you're like planning on advancing or something. French players done pretty good, although they're at almost 80 villagers. They're just floating a ton of resources. So again, make sure to also emphasize that point. And then I don't think there's really too much else to go over on this one. We kind of went over the basics of it. I'm going to go over another video here in this video, or another replay in this video, to kind of emphasize the scouting and reacting that you should do. And then we'll keep going from there. Alright, so for this second game, I'm going to do something a little different to kind of showcase what I mean when I say scouting and reacting. So this is going to be an English versus French game. Our player here, Jesse Punkman, is going to be French, and Toast Malone is going to be the English player. And I'm going to kind of show you what I would do if I were in their situation, depending on what I scouted. Just kind of, again, to show the difference between what Jesse's probably going to do. I actually didn't watch this replay because I figured I would go with it in a blank view to see how things go out. So we're going to kind of skip forward a little bit here because there's really not too much. At this level of play, I've noticed that the opening build orders are pretty good, pretty refined, which is good. Usually there's not too many big mistakes. You don't see an idle TC at this point, or at least very rarely, from what I've noticed, which is good. So, and that's what I would expect at this level, is to have the openings down. It's always going to be the later the game goes that makes it harder. At this point, we're not really scouting anything unusual, right? 3 on gold. We see French took food for, or the deer first. Or, sorry, the English player took deer first. But nothing too unusual. So we're just going to keep going. Scouting, which is, again, very important. Scouting is a very crucial thing, because you never know what your opponent's going to do. So we're going to go for our first thing here. If I scout a late age up like this, right? This is a 4 minutes and 30 seconds. They're starting their age up. That's very late for English. There's a couple things you can do. For starters, you now know you're safe. There's no way this English player is going to be pressuring you anytime soon. You have probably 2 to 3 minutes before they have any chance of threatening you. So you can do almost anything you want until about 7 minutes. I mean, this age up is, I think, it's super late even by normal standards, so I think this shouldn't be that late, but I could be mistaken. We didn't see any farms. I'm gonna just cheat and look. Okay, yeah, no farms, but anyway. So if I scouted this at this late of an advancement, and let's see if we don't check how many villagers are on there, which is fine. It's not like it matters. What I would probably have done is made one knight. Keep a scout in the base to, to make sure you know what they're doing, and I might even just go fast castle here so that you can take the relics, take the sacred sites, get some quick men-at-arms out to deal with any early pressure if they're going to do this late of an advancement, do pressure. We do see 2 on gold. I believe that was 2 on gold, so that doesn't really tell us much yet. This obviously indicates we see that they're walling. Again, this is to stop your knight harass. 1 on gold. And then we see there's a wall here. I don't agree with this knight path, by the way. We saw that this wasn't walled yet. So what I would have done is taken this. I would have gone straight up here. You could have either gone this way to try to hit him, or you could have gone up here to hit them. Could have even tried, if you really wanted to try to be sneaky, you could go here, all the way here, and hit the hunt. Every path but this. I don't like the trying to go the sideways first. I think this was a bad decision when you saw that this was unwalled. When we saw that this was unwalled. So that's kind of the first mistake we saw. We see a second knight here, and now at this point, I'm not saying what they're doing is a mistake, by the way. I'm just going by what I would have done. For example, I probably would have just gone for a fast castle. I don't think there's anything English could have done to punish it with how late they advanced. And I would have made a knight specifically so that I can keep them from hopefully scouting me like that scout is doing, or at least forcing them to stay back. And again, it helps you see what they're doing army-wise, right? At 8 minutes, we see 4 longbows, 1 spear. At 8 minutes, you could be starting advancing and being castle age. But we see that Jesse here wants to be aggressive. We're seeing archers, knights, and so I'm going to go over the first mistake I think that this build is that Jesse's been doing. I think there's too many villagers on food at this point. And I think we have too much on gold. Since we're not fast castling, there's no reason to have 8, 16 on food, and 8 on gold. You only need probably 5 on gold to support 1 stable, maybe even 4. This early farm, waste of wood as well. They should have invested this into a second archery range. By 8 minutes, if you're planning on being aggressive, which is very difficult to do against English, and definitely not something I would ever do in this situation, you want to have at least 2 archery ranges, and you want to add a second stable so you can do 2 stable knights and 2 archery ranges, which then indicates that you would want probably 8 on gold, but since that's not the play here, this is too much on gold and not enough on wood. I'd probably take 2 or 3 off gold, switch them to wood, and I might even take a couple off of food so that we can get a production for more archery ranges sooner. Because 1 barracks, 1 council hall is going to be more than enough to fend this off easily, even with their late advancement. So we're just going to kind of skip forward a little bit. There's a bit of fighting. Jesse obviously sees that they cannot push much, so they're pulling back to get some more units, which is a good decision. Again, that 1 production building of each is really hurting their military production. Like archer-wise, they only have 6 and only 4 knights. And then we can see, and this is where we can see that this is hurting them, by the way. They have 2 knights in production, and they have 4 archers in 1 range. You never want to do this. If you ever see that you're doing this, you want to add another production building. You should never be queuing multiple units and being able to support it like this. If you can, that means you need more production. So at this point in the game, I don't think this is a good attack ever, because it's very, very difficult to attack English. For those unaware, English have the network of citadels bonus, which means if they're by a town center, a castle, an outpost, they attack 25% faster, which makes it very, very hard to push their base because they have a consistent bonus to attack 25% faster. And so if I was the French player at this point, I would cut production. We have 10 on gold, which again is overkill with only 1 stable, and I would focus on castle. The English players are already going to be on the defensive because of how aggressive that they've been, and I think they have scouts still here. Nope, and they don't even have scouts because I didn't see it, but Jesse cleaned them out, which is good. You want to make sure to kill any scouts you can. So English has no idea what French is doing, except that, oh, French is being aggressive. So at this point, that's what I would have done. I would say Jesse's not reacting appropriately to the scenario. There's no way they're going to bust this with what they have. So let's just skip forward. They try to do. It looks like they try to do a knight run by, which unfortunately isn't really going to do much, and just kind of losing a lot of units for free. While I don't hate, While I don't hate getting early farms to prepare for a food transition, I do think it's too early in this stage of the game as French, because as French right now, you have complete map control. The English can't push you, and this is a bad retreat, but English can't push you right now. It would be smarter to take these hunts and even take this boar. And you can just make one outpost so that if you see longbows and stuff coming toward you, you can just garrison in the outpost or run away as needed. But there's no pressure English can do to you right now when you have map control, and they can't destroy a tower that quickly unless they have a bunch of spears, and you yourself have no military. But the French has, they have a good amount of knights, and then archer count's a little low, but still enough to threaten. But then, as we see, the French player is going to go castle, which I do agree with. I do disagree with only putting 3 villagers on this. Typically, when you go castle, you want to put about 8 villagers on there. You want to get to castle age and use that tech. Men at arms, upgrade your knights, upgrade your archers. It's very makes pushing a lot easier. And then again, an important thing that I'm not going to say is a big deal right now at this level of play. Relics, while very important, the higher level play you get, it's not a necessary focus. You have a bunch of other things to focus on improving on first. Like I said, like your macro, decision making, and of course, reacting to what your opponent's doing, scouting. Right now, we haven't really been scouting the opponent, which, I mean, it is hard to be fair, right? There's walls here and here, and your opponent's army's here, so in theory, you should never really be able to scout them. But it doesn't hurt to make a scout anyway and just poke and prod, keep an eye on them. Because look at this. This army just walked across the map and Jesse had no idea. This should never happen. You should never have this happen to you at this stage in the game, because at worst, at least have your knights here so you can see his army moving out. Now, of course, you still have to be able to react to retreat, but the point still stands. This attack came out of nowhere for the French player and had no idea this was coming, and that should never happen. Which is why he should have made another scout and just kept it here, at least, so you can keep track. It helps you to deal with things. For example, he actually probably could have cleaned that army. That really wasn't that big of an army. And imagine if they saw it with the scout from here, maybe set up a little flank and just demolish the army. And then if it's too strong of an army, that you don't want to fight that till you're ready. But then, as you can see, I mean, we're floating a lot of gold at this point, but with Castle Age tech, that should decrease it. And we're getting eco techs as well, which is good. Eco techs are very important, as even high level players have started to figure out. Me being one of them, they're actually very good. So at this stage in the game, we're both Castle Age. We didn't beat our opponent by very much, but I am going to say this is why you should put 8 villagers on the guild hall if advancing, not 3. You could have been, Jesse could have been advanced far sooner, and maybe they could have used that tech advantage to do some damage. Or at least force the opponent to retreat all the way back, or, something like that. Instead they're trying to push, and that's a big, scary army. That's at least 26 longbows we see, a bunch of spears, and we only have 14 archers and 12 knights. That's a very scary army. And we only have 2 archery ranges still. You should have more than 2 archery ranges at this point in the game. I would like to see at least 3 or 4 archery ranges and 2 to 3 stables if you're going to continue to go knights, which it looks like that's the plan with the French. Now at this point, seeing that army, myself, I would have walled. I would have actually walled these sides and stuff a while ago, just so that if they do attack, I have time to build up my army and react. I think getting a keep would be very important to get here from map control. The stage of the game here is to just try to get an army, try to take a very good fight, and then try to counterattack. Very hard to harass because of the walls, so you can't really do knight run-bys, but I wouldn't hate taking a group of knights, burning down the wall, and then running away, and then just trying to harass later on as the game goes on. English's most important resource is going to be wood. The new hill and dale does not have much wood, as we can see. It's just this little one and this one. So denying the English player from getting these or this is very important. That would be my major focus in this game, is to deny the wood, because you're never breaking into an English base unless they take a bad fight here. It's very hard to push into an English base, as pretty much any civilization, without being at a significant advantage. So what I would do here is make it my goal to deny these wood lines. My first goal would be to get a keep in the middle, just because it really makes it hard for English to push right across the map uncontested. Gives you more map control, And then I wouldn't hate towering, or maybe even walling off this sides, so that the English can't just walk out and take those wood lines. But again, this is kind of the downside to the no scouting portion that has been going on this game, and this is why scouting is very important, is, again, we have no idea what English is doing. We see this tower, we see 33 longbows, a bunch of spears, and we see horsemen, which aren't really going to do much because we have some arbaletaire, which I know I'm saying that wrong, by the way. So I should probably just call them crossbows so that I don't get vilified. But as we can see here, we got a siege workshop, and I actually do like the mangonel. I know people make fun of the mangonel being bad nowadays because of the nerf. I still think it has a place, even though it is. I do think it is a little too weak, but I do think it still has a place even with the nerf stats right now. What's the guild hall set to? Stone. I actually don't disagree with this. Getting stone so you can get keeps or a second TC is pretty important. I do say the only thing I do disagree with what Jesse's doing is not having any villagers on stone. The sooner they can get a keep out, the sooner they can get some map control and force the English to respond to that. French can actually do pretty well against English. An ideal unit composition I've personally found to be very strong is crossbowman knight with mangonels. I've actually found it to be pretty strong at engaging the English. Obviously, it still takes micro, which, depending on how comfortable you are with that or where you're at skill-wise, you may not want to focus on, but I mean, you do kind of have to if you're doing this unit composition. Getting the relics is a very good thing. Again, a lot of players at this level of play are not going to get relics. So this is actually very good to do. Because again, it's free gold. Each relic is 100 gold per minute. Now I will say, we scouted that English is on this stone mine. I would grab some knights and harass that. But right now, this is where the English player is doing good. They're building outposts all over the map, so they have vision of everything. They know where your army is. You're not going to sneak knights over here without them seeing it with an outpost. And this is a very... I just kind of realized how bad map gen this was for the poor French player. All the wood's on the English side, which makes this actually even more important to take as a French. Like, you actually probably want to get a keep. Like, so you want to have a keep up here, and you probably want to get a keep down here so you can secure the wood lines and deny your opponent them. Because right now, that's what the game's going to come down to. These wood lines and this one here. And, like, I don't like this red palace. It's very far, it's very defensive for no reason. And it's next to a keep. Why are we building a keep up here? I don't agree with either of these. At this point, what Jesse has done is they've conceded map control to the English player. So the English player can do whatever they want. We're not scouting, so we have no idea what our opponent's doing. So I'm going to do a little bit of a cheating here, because I think the lack of scouting is kind of showing the big mistakes that Jesse's making in this game. So looking at the English side, we see they have a bunch of longbows, spears still. They were able to build this keep uncontested. Jesse hasn't even moved out onto the map yet. He has a couple trebuchets, but he's not utilizing them. English has taken this wood line, which again we're unaware of, and they have a villager on this stone. And as we can see, there's outposts everywhere. They have full vision and full map control. This is not what you want as a French player, by the way. You should be the one with map control because you have the mobile knights to force your opponent to engage or, you know, be defensive. At this stage in the game, if you're actively scouting, and let's say that Jesse makes a scout here because they forgot all game and they decide to scout here and they see, oh, there's a keep in the middle. My opponent's gathering stone, which which isn't a surprise, and their army's in the middle. You want to get these trebuchets working on this keep ASAP, and then you have a couple mangonels. I'd preferably like 3 or 4 at this point, but you have a few mangonels. You have a bunch of archers and crossbows. You can do pretty well against this army, to be honest. 25 spears. You have 27 knights. This actually, if microed properly, the French player should win this fight. Horsemen aren't going to do much, and 25 spears are actually pretty easy to deal with. This is why, again, why scouting is important, right? Because if you scouted this, you know Jesse would be able to see that, hey, I can attack this right now. Instead, being too defensive, not being active on the map at all, and English is going to make a second keep, and now they're going to start attacking. Oh, I'm dumb, by the way. That was actually that was Jesse's keep. But those villagers wouldn't have died if they'd scouted. And again, I'm not trying to harp on Jesse. This is a very common problem at this level of play. To go to the English perspective, they're not, while they have great towers, they haven't exactly been scouting the French player either. Now they know about the red tower here and the keep here, but they're not keeping that much track. They haven't taken the relics, they haven't taken the sacred sites. Their macro, they have a ton of food, but they're not attacking, so they're not able to remax. This is kind of another big mistake. There's no reason not to be attacking as English at this point. And they probably could have attacked a while ago. And they only have one trebuchet. They should have more at this point, and they should have been pushing a while ago themselves. Just kind of skip forward here. Yeah, that keep's not going to survive because the Red Palace is crazy. And so we're kind of seeing here that Jesse's making spearmen, but there's no reason to make spearmen, right? With what we know, because we obviously can see everything, we only see 8 horsemen, the rest is spearmen, longbow. This is just a waste of resources because you don't need these. These are going to get demolished by longbows, and the 8 light horsemen are not going to do much against 30 knights and archers' crossbows. And then as we can see here, English is this is a very good job by the English player, by the way, is they are making a bunch of production buildings so that when they lose this army, they can instantly remax and just keep attacking. On the French side of things, this is a good thing to do. If those aren't unaware, if you play French, if you put buildings around the keep, everything coming out is 20% cheaper. So it doesn't show it here, but these are not actually 100 food, 20 gold. It's actually cheaper because of this. Yeah, because units cost reduced by 20%. I was just wanted to verify. So these are actually going by, what is it, 80 food, and then I don't know the math for the gold right now. But that's just kind of a point here. So this is good. You do want to do this. I struggle to do this because I forget about it all the time. But our bank is getting pretty low. And we have no way to get wood. Once this is mined out, once this is all out, we have no wood because we didn't. And since we never took a chance to get map control, we can't take this. English has complete mid control right now. You can try to sneak villagers out, but if they notice with the tower, then they're just going to kill them. And then this wood's about to be out. I guess they could take this small one here. I don't think there's too much else to go over on here. We're going to kind of see... Actually, I don't remember who wins this game, so we're just kind of fast forward. I think I've hammered the scouting portion quite a bit in this one. That's kind of the main thing you want to focus on at this level of play, but for those who want to see the end of the game, that's why I'm just doing this. So we're finally attacking. I'm guessing our trebuchets died? I'm not sure where the trebuchets went. And yeah. So we'll just skip forward to those for those who are curious. That engagement didn't go too well, fighting under a keep, which, by the way, English is now getting a 50% attack speed bonus, which makes it even more difficult to push in. And then we have no wood, so it doesn't really matter from this point. So English is just going to win here. And then that's pretty much... it for this portion of the guide. I did just remember that I forgot to remove the sound effects. I'm going to try not to forget next time, but if that ends up being a problem, I may redo this video completely. And but we'll see. It'll depend on the YouTube comments on it, if this bothered you guys or not. Or maybe you guys prefer sound effects. I'm not entirely sure, and then the game is over. So with that, that concludes this video. Hopefully it teaches you something. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave a comment in the video, and I will gladly go over whatever you need help with. I'll answer any questions, and then from that, we'll continue next weekend with the next section of the video, which should be 1200 ELO, which I think will be equivalent to gold rank. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and hope you all enjoyed.